Hello everybody! Surely there are some lovers or true fans of the mysterious and the paranormal among our viewers. There is something very appealing about finding the solution to the most surprising secret story and understanding the uncanny, at least for a moment. You probably love the feeling like the protagonist of an adventure story, but without the hat or the famous whip. So in today's video, we're going to show you the 10 biggest mysteries in human history. Let's get it on. Money Hole. Near the coast of Nova Scotia in Canada, there's a small and quite ordinary place known as Oak Island, and it certainly wouldn't attract the attention of those who love mysteries if it weren't for the fact that in 1975, according to the legend, two local teenagers found here an ancient and very deep mine, almost completely covered in soil. Naturally, they decided it would be an excellent idea to find out what was underneath, and they started digging. History doesn't tell us what it was they were able to find, but since then a large number of people have participated in the excavations, including one of the presidents of the United States, Franklin Roosevelt. Over the years, it was possible to discover that the mine, firstly, is very deep, and secondly, will not reveal its secrets. Of course, there are rumors of countless treasures buried somewhere in the depths of the mine by a group of unknown pirates, but no one knows the truth. The problem is that the structure of the mine is very insidious and prevents the treasure hunters from descending to a certain depth, as the space around it begins to fill with water. It is said that at a depth of 130 feet, a stone inscription was found which promised £2 million buried 50 feet deeper. The treasure hunt still continues, and one of the brave hunters managed to reach an underground lake where he saw something that forced him to flee in panic from Oak Island. What do you think it was? A man with no past. In movies and TV series, a trick known as character amnesia is used quite often. Well, you know, when the protagonist painfully tries to remember who he is and where he comes from. And in the course of the story, we discover that in the past he was related to a secret service agency, some aliens, or a mutant weapons project. But these situations don't only happen in movies. In 2004, an unknown person woke up near a Burger King restaurant in the state of Georgia. The man had no clothes or documents, and he remembered nothing about himself. For real, nothing at all, not even his name. The police carried out an exhaustive investigation, but they couldn't find any trace. There was no such person in the missing persons database, nor were there any relatives to identify the man. He was soon baptized Benjamin Kyle, but this did not help him get used to his new life, because without documents and education he couldn't get a job. And this story could have a very sad ending if it weren't for a local businessman who saw Kyle on TV and offered him a job as a dishwasher in a restaurant. He still works there, but all the efforts of doctors to awaken the memory of this man have failed, and we can only wonder what exactly happened in Benjamin Kyle's past and why his brain refuses so strongly to remember it. Chopped Feet Beach. Okay, it may sound a little creepy, but this beach does exist. Since August the 20th, 2007, in the Salish Sea of British Columbia, reports of very strange discoveries started to appear. Shoes with the remains of human feet inside. Yeah, a lot of sneakers with pretty nasty contents. Up to now, it has been possible to find 16 of these feet dragged to the shore. Canadian police conducted a thorough investigation, but only managed to establish that the feet belonged to at least 5 men, 1 woman and 3 other persons of unknown sex. 2 pairs of feet were found together as pairs, but the rest of this story remains a great mystery. According to one version, the footwear along with the contents belonged to the victims of a tsunami, but some of the locals keep telling horror stories about assassins obsessed with sneakers. Dance Plague. The Middle Ages is a bizarre, strange time, so it's not surprising that a lot of mysterious or simply terrible things happened back then. You've probably heard of the plague, a terrible disease of that time, but hardly anyone knows about the dance plague. The first mention of this phenomenon dates back to 1374. In the city of Aachen, a dozen people suddenly began to dance for no reason, and they danced until they passed out of exhaustion. All this sounds like a strange Tim Burton fantasy, but the dance plague is a true historical fact, recorded in many cities in France, Italy, and England. Scientists have not yet been able to discover what kind of phenomenon it is and why it emerged. Medieval doctors blamed it on an excess of hot blood in the dancers' bodies, but we don't trust their conclusions because the medicine at that time was not of very good quality. Alien signal. Do you believe in aliens? Well, Dr. Jerry Ayman not only accepted the existence of extraterrestrial civilizations, but he even managed to get confirmation. Well, at least he managed to record a strange signal from outer space, more precisely from the constellation of Sagittarius. This happened back in August 1977, but the mystery of the signal remains unresolved. The characteristics of the sound from outer space turned out to be similar to the answers scientists have been waiting from a galaxy far, far away. Dr. Ayman even circled the recorded signal and wrote the word "wow" near it. This word gave the name to the signal, which lasted for only 72 seconds, but managed to turn the entire scientific community upside down. However, not so long ago, astronomers Antonio Paris and Evan Davis, after studying this phenomenon for many years, published an article explaining that its origin was due to clouds of hydrogen, interferences, and a comet. But still, we'd still like to believe that we're not alone in the universe. Voynich Manuscript. Here we have a mystery worthy of the famous Robert Langdon, the Voynich Manuscript. This document was named after an American bookseller who bought this unusual artifact from an unknown person in 1912. 3 years later, the happy owner of the old manuscript finally took a look at his acquisition and decided that he must tell the whole world about his discovery. The fact is that the book was written by an unknown author in an unknown language with an unknown alphabet. Yes, a complete manuscript full of beautiful images and a lot of incomprehensible scribbles. Of course, scientists conducted several analyses and discovered that the manuscript was created between 1404 and 1438, but its content has not been determined, and all because the manuscript text has no visual similarity to any known writing system, so it could not be deciphered. Yamal Wells. In July 2014, in the Yamal Peninsula in northwestern Siberia, a loud noise was heard. The result of the inexplicable explosion was a huge well, the width and depth of which reached 50 feet. Fortunately, the event occurred far from any populated areas, and therefore there were no people hurt. But anyway, such a dangerous phenomenon couldn't be ignored. An expedition was organized ASAP, but upon arriving on the scene, none of the eminent scientists could explain the nature of what had happened. On the other hand, while the expedition was working on the Yamal Peninsula, the mysterious phenomenon repeated twice. Until now, scientists have been able to give only one version of this phenomenon, a spontaneous natural gas explosion that ascended to the surface of the Earth. But many experts consider this idea to be unconvincing. Well, some paranormal fans prefer to think that the mysterious faults are portals to another dimension. Antikythera mechanism. In the 20th century, a group of treasure hunters discovered this instrument on an ancient Greek ship. It turned out to be not just any artifact, but the first analog computer in history. Yes, you heard it right. This rusty little gadget is the great-grandfather of your favorite laptop. Several cleverly connected bronze discs allowed to calculate the position of the stars in the sky, the time and date according to different calendars, and even the dates of the Olympic Games. Apparently, sailors didn't want to miss any sporting events. Scientists discovered that the device was manufactured around 100 BC, 1600 years before Galileo's discoveries, and 1700 years before the birth of Isaac Newton and his Apple. And speaking of apples, in 2010, an Apple engineer created a copy of the mechanism using Lego pieces. Why is that? Because why not? Frozen. If you've seen the animated film Frozen, you may remember that Elsa, besides being able to control the cold, could not freeze herself. Well, it looks like we found an Elsa in real life. Although Jean Hilliard cannot create snowmen and ice castles with a simple movement of her hand, she did manage to survive in extreme cold conditions. This story took place in a snowy December of 1980. Jean was only 19 years old and went to visit her parents at Christmas. Suddenly, her vehicle stopped working, so the young woman decided to go by foot to a nearby friend's house. She nearly made it, but she suddenly passed out and got trapped in the cold snow for about 6 hours, until a friend found her. Obviously, he took her to the hospital, where the doctors said they couldn't do anything. Her body temperature was lower than the thermometer could measure, and her pulse was barely there. Everyone was absolutely sure that Jean was dead, but for some reason they decided to defrost the girl and put her somewhere warm. Imagine the surprise of the doctors when the girl started moving, opened her eyes and even asked for water. After 3 days she was able to move her legs, and in 6 weeks she was sent home completely safe and healthy. And to this day, scientists can't understand how it was possible. Maybe it was a miracle. Winged monster. You might think that dinosaurs are not one of the most representative life forms on the planet, but for several centuries, people all over the world claim to have seen these ancient lizards. And not in museums or books, but in real life, like any other animal, like a horse or an elephant in the zoo. Some even claim to have videos or photos, but in most cases they turn out to be fake. However, this picture is very different from many similar ones. In the picture there's a group of men dressed in old military uniforms, and next to them is a creature that looks like a huge bird or a pterodactyl. This photo first appeared in the American magazine Believe It or Not in 1950. According to the story, some soldiers shot down the giant bird in 1864 near the city of Vicksburg on the site of a series of fierce battles. The image continues to create controversy, and despite the fact that the photo was actually made in the 19th century, some say that the art of photography was already well developed at that time, and they knew how to Photoshop a dinosaur into a photo.
If you haven't checked Jelly Gummy Bear's channel yet, you should do it right away. You'll certainly like all the funny experiments with the jelly bear, cool life hacks, awesome homemade stuff, and exciting adventures that are waiting for you on the channel.
Thanks for watching. Please like and share the video in social networks, and we'll be right back to you as fast as we can.